Welcome, eCom Logistics Nation. We're thrilled to be coming to you live from the heart of Atlanta at Modex 2024, right here at the Georgia World Congress Center. A shout out to our sponsor, G&P Construction, your go-to provider for comprehensive turnkey material handling and solutions in both logistics and commercial needs. We are truly grateful for the support.
You still have to have pallets of goods to feed into these systems, whether it's a full warehouse, like you said, for fulfillment, or the autonomous fulfillment cases. But you still need the goods to come. Welcome, eCom Logistics Nation. We're thrilled to be coming to you live from the heart of Atlanta at Modex 2024, right here at the Georgia World Congress Center. A massive shout out to our incredible sponsor, G&P Construction. And now we're thrilled to be joined by Oana, co-founder of Dexory. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really thrilled to be here. It's massive show, isn't it?
Massive.
Is this your first time?
It's the first time at Modex. Yeah, we did the ProMat last year and a couple of others. But yeah, this is definitely the biggest.
So how old is Dexory at this point? Because you guys have been making a lot of noise. People ask me about it all the time. So I'm curious now.
Love that. Yeah, stuff's working, all the marketing.
Exactly.
Originally the company actually started over 8 years ago. So we had a different brand until about 18 months ago. We were called Bots and Das.
Okay.
So we've been Dexory for about a year and a half and transitioned fully into logistics.
Sorry, what did you do before logistics?
Still robotics.
Okay.
Yeah, but we were just focusing on retail stores. So we're doing inventory and data collection in the stores themselves.
Definitely want to start by hearing about your journey. Obviously, you spent some time at Google. Yale is in there. So really interesting background. So share with the audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I mean, it's a lot of people ask me, okay, what do you do at Dexory? And they expect me to say, I don't know, advanced robotics and AI, computer vision, things like that. But I look after product and commercial. And my background has mainly been kind of go to market and identifying kind of product ideas, building them, and then kind of taking them to audiences. So before Dexory, I spent some time at Google, almost 7 years, working in London, in the London office, but overseeing partnerships and product across EMEA. And before that, I was at Telefonica, so in the telco world. Similarly, they have a kind of a Telefonica digital branch where similarly they're building kind of new ways of communicating and also using digital and new channels. So yeah, it's been at the intersection, I would say, of business, marketing, and tech. And that's very much what I do at Dexory as well.
Wow. Google. I like that name. It's fun working for them, isn't it?
Definitely.
How did you then fall into robotics?
Yeah. So
and the journey of Dexory, let's talk about that. How did you did you trip into it? Did you fall into it?
Yeah, bang my head and I was like, Yeah. So we're three co-founders at Dexory. It's myself, Andre, and Adrian. And Andre's background has mainly been hardware, electronics. He used to work for Formula One. So he used to be trackside for Force India.
I already love him.
There you go. So he is the one who kind of brought the robotics angle to what we're doing. And my colleague Adrian, he's kind of software developer by trade and nature. Used to work for IBM, like a couple of the scale-ups like Just Eat. So we came together just about 8 years ago around this kind of idea of building something in robotics. Initially, it was going to be like a little side project, and now it's kind of turned into like 100+ people company and growing. So, yeah.
Well, it's been a journey, eh?
Yeah, but it's actually, so the first thing we did was actually going to be a robot for the home. So this was many years ago, like prototyping in our garage and with a 3D printer. And we were going to do like a service and security robot for the house. Very quickly, we realized it was going to be way too expensive and no one's going to ever be able to afford it. So we shifted into retail at that point. What was interesting is it was growing very well. We had customers, robots live across Europe, working with some of the big names in consumer electronics especially. And then we had a very big global event called the pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. And obviously stores shut. So interestingly enough, it was the retailers that we were working with at the time that approached us. And we have a very similar use case inside our warehouses. We can't get people in because everyone was obviously kind of under lockdowns, and we need to continue to do our stock checks, inventory management, cycle counting, especially now when everything has to come in and out and through the warehouse at a crazy speed because everyone's buying online. So that was kind of the first time, kind of end of 2020, when we heard about this idea of inventory management in warehouses. and fully kind of then transitioned into it, explored it. Initially tried to do it with the same robotics systems that we had for the stores, but of course, like going from like 2 meters to 14 high, and then like 1,000,000 square feet is actually one of the size that we're in now. So had to kind of completely shift products, change the team, change the approach, and fully went into logistics last year with our new Dexory Review product.
Based on my understanding, AMR kind of platform at the end of the day, right? With a telescopic arm that does image captures, of course, computer vision, added some layers on top of it that allows you to see a whole bunch. So maybe if you can help us with the value proposition, what gap did you see in the market that you are trying to address?
Technically, Dexory Review as a product is more the software that we sell, which is the digital twin platform.
Okay.
Because compared to other robotic systems out there, our robot collects information, but the robot is not the product. Like if you have a picking robot or like an autonomous forklift, obviously the hardware is the product because that's what you use to do the job. But from our perspective, the product that we have is the data. So the robot itself is there to collect the information, process everything on the edge, but then that gets pushed into the digital twin platform. So what our customers are getting is access to that on a continuous basis. Yeah, so the main kind of value proposition, to go back to your question, is actually being able to real time see exactly what physically is in every single site that you operate as an operator of warehouses, whether it's a 3PL or a retailer, whatever it is, even a manufacturer, which is kind of like goods going into the production line. So at a click of a button, really kind of getting a sense of exactly what's there, when did it come in, what has it moved, is it compliant, and everything else. So that capability of literally instantly knowing exactly where things are and how many you have is what we're addressing.
That's a really good, both from a go-to-market strategy as well as the capability side of things, right? Like lots of AMRs that can do lots of different things, but at the end of the day, that's just the hardware platform. The software side, which is from a digital twin perspective, when we use the word digital twin, one of the things that comes to my mind is like the twins got to replicate everything in real time. Now we are dependent still on the hardware to go around the facility, right? Like it's let's say you mentioned 1 million square feet, but let's bring it down, 100,000 square feet. You got a robot that could be constantly live, going around, doing a snake pattern, Z pattern, whatever way that, is ideal. But it's trying to capture, but while it's somewhere else, something else is going on the other side. Like, how do you kind of like account for that? Like, sorry, I'm a geek out on this. So yeah.
No, it's a very good question. I think you have to kind of think about, so going back to your point initially, what is a digital twin, right? So a lot of people have different perceptions on that. And in logistics so far, the only way you can actually have a digital twin is most people have a CAD file of the warehouse when they build it with some racking drone on it. And they say like, oh yeah, this is our digital twin, where it's not really, it's a digital representation of your warehouse. But a twin, going back to your point, means it needs to react and act just like the physical element does, right? So you kind of has to have that kind of capability of being constantly updated and constantly having the latest information. Otherwise, you would rely on like, I don't know, WMS data or any other kind of systems data to just kind of feed into that CAD file initially, but it's not really that real-time view.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like to your point, most of the places it's just CADs. This is an evolution to the next gen to see, okay, what's happening historically, but then analyze and kind of start looking at what would happen from a future perspective with, some variables or parameters changing. Though I'm a product guy at heart, so I love talking about like evolution. If you are already there, that raw data from a WMS, if that was incorporated, then now you got real-time feed. Now all you are doing is validating what the WM is telling you after the fact, right? Like it's a combination of data. Like the transactions that are occurring in WM because the feeds can be available and depending on the warehouse management system. But you could start pulling that information and then merging it with what I had just captured. Then is that kind of the vision?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what we're already doing that.
Okay.
And going back to your point, so first of all, you have that validation, you have the correction, and also the extra context that you have, both from the physical world and the WMS, because I mean, while the WMS has information about, let's say, the goods you're scanning from suppliers and when transportation or things like that, the additional things we're capturing apart from like a label and things like that, we can get volumetrics, we can get quantities, we can get environmental analysis, or has it been stored in the right temperature, for example. So to your point, you're merging all those data points together and you're really kind of creating some very, very deep insight into what's going on the site. But this is what we're already kind of have live and with our customers. The next step is actually going to what you were saying is how can you predict the future? How can you simulate the future within the digital twin? And how can you really bring AI tools into it to really be able to change your slotting kind of logic, or be able to consolidate stock together, and doing that in a very visual and simple way that's very intuitive for the staff to use, rather than your typical WMS spreadsheet views and
yeah, exactly. And regardless of your definition of digital twin, at the end of the day, like it's CAD. Now I got a 3D CAD, right? And I know empty spots as an example. But there's got to be something else, right? Like that empty spot situation, like I can eyeball, right? Like there's got to be something that goes deeper. And to the point that you're making, it's like, okay, I can go really deep on that perspective of, inventory optimization. Where should I be putting things away? Where is, what if that trailer that's coming in right now, where should the put be, and give a very specific instruction that takes into consideration the optimization of the labor footprint on how things get put away. A lot of cool shit can happen from this.
But that's okay. exactly what drives us at the moment is how can we evolve this digital twin? Like what other things are we doing? We're not necessarily looking to do more robotics, or physical or hardware stuff to kind of capture more in the warehouse. For us, the big value to our users is what else you could be doing with the data. So it's exactly what you were saying.
That makes sense.
That's awesome. No, that the last 10 minutes taught me a ton. So really appreciate that. And I've got just a few questions to tee up for you both to maybe geek out about. One of the, I come from the 3PL world. What is there a use case where if you just think of all the different places inventory is within a warehouse, specifically a direct-to-consumer fulfillment center, you have staging area with inbound, you've got your reserve pallet locations, which we're talking a lot about. You've got your active locations where you have active inventory for picking, whether it's manual or robotics, whatever it might be. So is it specific to inventory that's in reserve locations? Can it handle those edges where maybe it's inventory still at a loading dock?
Sure. So, of course, reserve is pretty straightforward. It's in a rack and it's kind of easy to get. Also in reserve, you have the pick at the bottom. Sometimes, we have customers that pick from anywhere in vertically as well, not just from the bottom. So the picking locations are a bit different because that's where we use our LiDAR technology to capture the volumes. And then be able to extract quantities as well. So not just that, we confirm it's a full pallet there, but also going deeper. So we could do picking locations, whether those are, like I said, in the rack or somewhere else, like you were saying, in a different area. And something that we recently launched as well is block stack. So for any customer that has stuff on the floor, pallets on top of each other, that's also something that we are covering at the moment. So we do a lot of work with consumer electronics manufacturers or 3PLs for consumer electronics. If you guys are familiar with that, usually you have stacks of fridges and dishwashers or washing machines, very, very different layouts. So we can cover that. And also just to kind of finish on the point on what you could do by the doors. The robots can kind of go around on the goods that have been unloaded from a truck while they're on the floor waiting to be put away. So, yeah.
So there is different kinds of media from storage, right? There is different kinds of products that go in this media, right? Be it your pallet racks or, you got your regular racks, you got, double deeps, right? If you think about this space is empty, or in relation to the total height, width, whatever you might want to consider of inventory to the available cubic footage of that location, I see a reduction. That's a part of the calculation. You can kind of respond back and say, hey, there is empty space. I see more space to put in inventory. I have referential information about the SKUs that happen to be at that location. But it depends on the type of product, like big and bulky refrigerators, microwaves, cool story. You get into things that are smaller. You get into things that are double deep. Is that something that you solve for?
Yeah, I'll go to the double D first because that's pretty straightforward in a sense of the use case. So if you have two pallets behind each other that are the same SKU, that's no problem whatsoever because using the LiDAR, you'll see that there's another volume behind the first volume.
Oh, the LiDAR does that?
Exactly. So yeah. So that'll give you that 3D perception and analysis. So you can confirm that I've got 2-3 pallets in this kind of row. But the challenge will be like if you have different SKUs within there, unfortunately, there's no technology out there that has X-rays to really kind of read barcodes through a pallet. Yeah. But it's a step forward because at least you can confirm that you've got the high-res pictures as well. But still, obviously, you might need to go and triple check physically what is in there. So that's unfortunately something that no one can really kind of address at the moment.
Right.
And then just because you mentioned on the granularity of the goods as well, of course, there will be a limitation to how much you can use computer vision on to really be able to do the counts. Like we have customers that are asking us if we can count like screws and bolts and things like that. I mean, not even humans do that, right? So
exactly. I mean, other than like if the camera is right on top and you have like 100 screws down there,
and
then
which one of them is separated, like which is not like realistic.
We actually had that use case that we had to deal with where it was literally the bolts. And it was returned bolts. And you had to now, because humans could not see the difference between bolt size like 3 and 4, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And like you got to have the camera right up top to be able to like sort it, to be like, where is this supposed to go? So I can imagine that's a really complex use case, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, you have to understand as well as a company like you, in the stage that we're at, where we're going to scale up at this point in time. So you wouldn't start with the edge cases, right?
Of course.
So you'll start with like, what the general kind of need is.
Yeah, from a CPG perspective, right? Like it's, and again, I think a lot of the world forgets that as much as we all love to talk about e-commerce and all the noise we make in e-commerce, the pallet in, pallet out operations, the pallet in, case out operations, the case in, case out operations, and case in, pallet out operations are still majority of what actually happens in the distribution space today.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like if you look at the tens of billions of square feet of warehousing that's in America, I can tell you like only like 10, 15% might represent the actual last mile fulfillment deployment where you got to open up the box and take a bolt out. Again, hopefully no one's shipping a single bolt. I mean, not good for the environment, but like that type of operation is very limited compared to what the rest of the world happens to be. And I see the value proposition 100%. Like, and it's such a large space as well. So
yeah. And I think one thing that we're getting a lot sometimes from people, like even investors that we talk to, is like, okay, so I can see these like AutoStore, Exotech type of technologies taking over. And absolutely, they're doing a great job and they're great companies. But to your point, that is the last kind of step of it. You still have to have pallets of goods to feed into these systems, whether it's a full warehouse, like you said, for fulfillment or the autonomous fulfillment cases. But you still need the goods to come.
I mean, AutoStore, Exotech, I mean, those guys, that's a different game, right? Like, again, like if you were to look at the total footprint, their total addressable market of the amount of warehouses that you have might be 1, maybe 2%. Like you pushing it at that point. I'm not even joking. Look at the amount of implementations to the amount of square footage that actually goes in there. So like, but that's massive capital investment. When you are ready to do something amazing, that's a different universe. What you're talking about is like pretty much any pallet in, pallet out operation, pallet in, partial pallet out operation, right? I mean, let's get an image. Let's try and figure out what's happening and create a digital twin. Though, I do have to ask this. Why that platform versus I can do the same thing from a drone?
Yeah.
And you said you are more a software company, right? So does it really matter what platform it is?
Going back to exactly the point that you mentioned, first of all, that there's two sides to what we're doing, right? So you have the data capturing side where you could talk about the robot versus a drone. And then you have the digital twin where we're quite kind of uniquely positioned. And there's not that kind of much out there. But if you think about the data capture, the reason we went to the AMR approach, first of all, it's a safe approach. So people are used to having AMRs in their warehouses. We can work around people, machinery at any time during the day or night. You don't have to close the warehouse, close the aisles. And the second part is the speed. And I mean, like, I really admire like what the colleagues are doing, obviously, with drones and being able to really orchestrate fleets of drones indoors. It's risky and complicated, but you still have to have that drone going to every single pallet, sometimes a few times to actually identify that labels. The battery life on a drone, of course, is quite low, which is why you have to have multiple drones to work. So I think that's why we said, like, look, the AMR angle is people are used to it. It's the safest, it's the fastest, and also the easiest to maintain as well, because you're one unit that you have to care about.
So you say a telescopic AMR is a safer option than a drone.
Yeah.
Can you kind of like dig into it? I want to learn purely, like, I want to know why. Like, I would have thought like an AMR with, how high do you go?
40 feet.
40 feet. An AMR with 40 feet telescopic arm, does it move while it's extended, or does it stay stationary, go up, gets back down, moves to the next location bay, and then kind of goes up, goes down?
It moves while it's extended. That's the whole value proposition. That as extended, it's like a giant scanner capturing the whole rack, top to bottom, left to right in one go. And it moves at about 0.5 meters a second. So it's not too fast, but also not too slow, right? And to your point, I mean, it is safe for first of all, because it's built as an AMR, so with all the kind of safety requirements in place, it's all kind of fully certified. And also the way it's been designed is like most of that weight is in the bottom. It's very kind of little weight at the top. There's a lot of mechanical.
Yeah, I saw the arm, like it becomes skinnier and skinnier. It's it's like a tripod, right? Like it's essentially the in tripod, the lower you go, the skinnier it is. In this case, like the higher you go, the skinnier it becomes, right? Yeah.
The challenge you have with drones, a drone can fall from the top by kind of capturing a little bit of shrink wrap, or just because of the wind, or like the flow of air in the warehouse, which makes it dangerous because you could fall on somebody's head. Even if it's small, obviously it could be dangerous, right? So that's why most of our customers don't want to have drones operating with people inside the warehouses. There might be changes coming to that, I don't know, but from their perspective, again, they're used to having autonomous forklifts, they're used to having like locust robots doing picking, so they get the idea of another AMR. And even if it's tall, like I said, like we do all the safety checks with them, they really kind of like try and push it around, then still like it's very, very safe to operate.
That makes sense to me. I mean, that seems like a really good, and so from a safety perspective, you would say the AMR certified, everything's, good working. So, okay, that makes sense. And it sounds like, you can look at what's outside, you can scan the barcode that's on the outside. But like if it's an active location that's got a case of 10 and someone used 3, like there's not much you can do what's inside the box, right?
What's inside the box? No, unfortunately, like I said, it's not much out there. There's all kinds of things we're doing now with like temperature and like analysis of, like, for example, you've got batteries and other things like that, but it's still kind of limited in terms of telling you what's in there. And sorry, what I was going to say as well is if you do use RFID tags, that's a very different story.
I was just going to ask that. That was like my next, like that's where I was going. I was going to go into RFID.
I mean, a lot of people talk about implementing RFID, but they're not really going all the way. I think it's going to evolve over the next kind of year or so. Like as the technology becomes a little bit more affordable, because you have to do that in mass. Like we're talking millions and millions of tags. But if you do have RFIDs, and we can put antennas on the robot, we already kind of have that, and you will see what's in the box. So that's kind of like maybe what I didn't kind of reference is kind of there's multiple data points that we collect. So one is we use computer vision to extract information about labeling, or whatever type of barcode, QR codes, data matrix, whatever you use from continuous pictures we take with the computer vision cameras. But then the second layer is the LiDAR sensors to get volumetrics. And the third layer is from the high resolution images that we have, we get like even more information through additional kind of AI tools. So if you add the RFID on top of that, then obviously that gives you like almost 4 different ways of understanding and kind of capturing what's in a location. So the whole beauty of it goes back to the data again. It's like, how do you overlay that? Also kind of connect it back to the WMS. So it's kind of becoming very, very easy to understand what's there once you got them overlaid.
I just have to say, the best thing that we conversed about was like that perspective around digital twin. To be very honest, like that's where it's angling it at that rather than the hardware platform. And hardware is required to do it, but like the angle is the digital twin and the need for digital twin, and taking it to the next level, right? Like step 1, go from your CAD to 3D, then go from that to like more informational about, as your WM, as your automation systems are taking actions, being able to incorporate that and show that back to them. And then the third one is add simulation on top of it to say, hey, based on my historical, what does my future look like? I love that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm sure when you started the company, you had a thesis as to how big this problem was. What I'm excited to hear is, now that you have applications and you have installs going on, I know on your website, you state under 12-month ROI. 99.9% inventory accuracy. So how big of a discrepancy? I know it's a loaded question because it depends on the warehouse and everything else, but maybe just some examples of how wide the discrepancy you have found as you've been doing the inventory checks.
It's interesting because when you go in and talk to a lot of the teams, you're like, oh no, we've got pretty good accuracies, like 99% every single day. It takes us about 5 days maximum from the time we come in to kind of actually be able to give customers end-to-end data. So it's a very, very quick install process. So literally in less than a week, you'll be able to say, actually, it's not really 99%. It's probably somewhere between 90 and 95 on a good day. But the beauty of it is like once you kind of see those errors, you can start acting on them. And of course, you're not going to solve everything on day one. But what we're seeing is people usually kind of 1 or 2 months in, that goes to literally 99%. And the beauty of it is you can maintain it up there because then you only have to worry about a few things every day rather than, oh my God, there's 2,000 things. Where am I going to start? Oh, actually now it's like about 40, 50 things and I know where exactly to go. And that's for like sites that have, 100,000 plus pallet locations. So again, going back to some of the things I was saying earlier, that real-time visibility then allows them to operate very, very smoothly without having to worry about a lot of things to fix.
That makes sense. And I got one last one there, and I know we are kind of closing in, but I got one last one while I was thinking about it, was maintainability. So as you go to a site, right, like what's your bot to footprint ratio? Is there like a number like that? I've just made that up. Like, is there a bot to footprint ratio?
It's a good question. It depends on how much data you need to collect and how quickly, right? So currently we just do 1 robot per site and we're still able to kind of turn that data around in less than 24 hours. Even for the biggest, I mentioned 1 million square foot is the one that it takes us quite about like 15, 16 hours to do wall to wall. But if our customer wants more frequently, then we can bring another robot in. We're trying to keep it quite smooth because going back to this still much, much, much faster than any other way of collecting that data. And it still allows them to act on it. So you still kind of have to have a bit of time to react to the issues.
Okay. And if you got 1 or 2 robots deployed, let's say in, Boise, Idaho, right? Like support for, lower amount of hardware, it's got to be harder, I would assume, right?
Yes and no. So we have, there's the 2 layers, right? First of all, you have the continuous monitoring. So our teams kind of monitor from our HQ, all the robots that we have live. We're currently live from Eastern Europe all the way to Utah and into Middle East and soon South Africa. So kind of like operating from all over the world.
Yeah, like my fleet is reliable. They never go down. They don't go to sleep. They self-charge.
I wish to say that, right? Yeah. It's like kids, right? They will go sometimes a little bit rebellious. But that's why we have the team kind of overseeing everything. And we have a lot of kind of tools that we build internally to allow them to do that. But if you do have to kind of get somebody on site, we have very strict SLAs with our customers and we're there.
And it's like, you don't have to configure the warehouse. It's taking all the images and it's going to translate into it actually defining what the warehouse looks like.
Our approach is there's no infrastructure changes because you referred to that. We don't put any kind of QR codes on the racking or lines on the floor or anything else. All we need is a power plug. And the rest is just a robot working on its own map. So it's very kind of typical SAM technology, a little bit more advanced because warehouses are really big. You don't have to do anything and it can be retrofitted in any environment, existing kind of site as well. So
awesome. Well, we really, really appreciate you joining. It's been insightful and educational. As we wrap up, want to give you an opportunity to share with everyone where they could go to follow you on social media and where they could go to learn more about the solution.
Sure. I think our LinkedIn channel is probably the best place. We use it a lot. So definitely kind of follow us on LinkedIn. You'll see the latest on customers. Obviously, we do a lot of content with customers as well, talk about their successes. Helping kind of people answer more and more questions with real life examples.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Oana.
Thank you so much, Bo. Thank you.
As we bring another episode to a close here at Modex, we want to extend our gratitude to GNP Construction for their sponsorship of the podcast. If you're in need of top-notch, all-inclusive material handling solutions for logistics and commercial real estate, look no further than GNP Construction. Be sure to visit GANDPconstruction.com to discover your one-stop shop for turnkey MHE integrations.
Hi, I'm Ninad Acharya, CEO and co-founder of Fulfillment IQ, and I'm here with
Dan Call, CRO and partner at Fulfillment IQ. We're the team behind the eCom Logistics podcast. Our mission is to provide you with genuine insights from our work alongside logistics leaders to help you improve your supply chain.
In the eCom Logistics podcast, we share the knowledge and the insights we've gained from working alongside amazing brands, retailers, 3PLs, and VCs, so you can make the most out of your supply chain journey.
If you like what you're hearing, we'd truly appreciate your support with a 5-star rating on your favorite podcasting channel. Your feedback not only keeps us going, but also helps others find the podcast. If you think Fulfillment IQ can assist you, or if you have an idea related to logistics, just reach out to us on LinkedIn. We're always up for a chat and ready to explore new possibilities together.
Stay tuned to the eCom Logistics podcast on your favorite podcast platform for fresh and practical insights into e-commerce and logistics. Until next time, let's keep making a difference.